So that was a fucking lie. It was very difficult to write about Yakuza 6. I wasn't sure मुझे इस game को कैसे treat करना चाहिए. Like it was marketed as the last game in Kiryu saga or just as another Yakuza game. Then I realized कि कैसे almost every single Yakuza game since the first one could have been the last. Yakuza 1 as a one-off game start हुआ था. Yakuza 3 ends Kiryu's story on a pretty perfect note. Yakuza 4 was literally named heir to the legend, and Yakuza 5 seems like a conclusion in many ways. Then here comes Yakuza 6, जो अपने आप को as the last game in Kiryu saga market करता है. Series creator Toshiro Noguchi also confirmed that Yakuza 6 will be the last game in the Legend of Kazuma Kiryu saga. December 8, 2016, Yakuza 6 release होता है. It got positive reviews. But fans are a bit mixed on the ending. I wonder why. Kiryu gets a small cameo in Yakuza LikeaDragon, which is fine. But then on September 14th, 2022, Sega ने 2 new Yakuza games announced किए. LikeaDragon 8 and LikeaDragon, The Man Who Erased His Name. And looky, who are the main protagonists of these games? Well, of course, series का most beloved character, Taichi Suzuki. aka Joryu, aka the man who raised his name, also known as Kazuma Kiryu. Yakuza 6 किसी भी हालत में Kiryu का लास्ट गेम नहीं होने वाला था, and that ending basically confirms it. At most हम इसे Kiryu की मेन स्टोरी का कंक्लूजन कंसिडर कर सकते हैं, but even that is not the truth because in the end LikeaDragon Garden and Infinite Wealth इस स्टोरी को कंटिन्यू करता है. So yeah, Yakuza 6 is just another Yakuza game, and boy do I have a lot of spicy and controversial things to say about it. So, let's start. The biggest new changes and additions to the game are related to the new game engine. Yakuza 6 सीरीज का फर्स्ट प्रॉपर 8-gen टाइटल है, जो PS4 की रॉ पावर का पूरा फायदा उठाता है कंपेयर टू Ishin, Yakuza 0 एंड Yakuza Kiwami, जो 7th and 8th-gen consoles पर क्रॉस-gen टाइटल्स थे. Dragon Engine is a huge leap in every single way. Graphically, the game looks stunning, especially the cinematography. Animations are fluid and realistic. Game world much more reactive hai in terms of combat, traversal and interactivity. There are no more loading screens when entering and exiting most areas. And the lighting looks that drop gorgeous. So much so they had to downgrade it in the future games for better performance. Even almost 8 years after its release, Yakuza 6 stuns in the graphics department, especially in nighttime. The small graphical details like fluid and cloth simulations sells the realistic graphics even more. I don't think मैंने किसी अदर गेम में इतनी डिटेल्ड फ्लूइड सिम्स देखे होंगे. और how the light reacts to the materials like Kiryu की dark red shirt, which shines and changes color depending upon the light. Or the extremely cool looking aura particle effects in the combat. क्या मैं इन सभी things पर कुछ ज़्यादा ही ध्यान दे रहा हूँ? Maybe, but not gonna lie man, these things are cool to me. And the developers must have put hundreds if not thousands of hours into these small details. So, let's appreciate it. The combat is completely overhauled. The basic combat अब much more grounded and heavy feel होता है with the inclusion of physics, जो Dragon Engine combat में काफ़ी pivotal role play करती है due to object and enemy collision. Because of this, most attacks area of effect properties रखते हैं, in which Kiryu can hit multiple enemies at once, जो previous engine के combat में भी present था but not to this degree. Due to this particular change and high enemy counts, Dragon Engine combat मुझे personally Musou games की याद दिलाता है, जिनमें combat depth की जगह spectacle पर focus करता है. And with how stripped back the combat is, it makes a lot of sense, even if it is unintentional. Combat is back to basics with one fighting style and character. Dragon Engine में Kiryu की Dragon of Dojima style काफ़ी different है compared to any of the previous iterations. It's an amalgamation of brawler, rush and beast style from Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Kiwami, but with meager variety and very small combo strings. Extreme Heat Mode एक new mechanic है जिसमें Kiryu extra damage deal करता है while using new heat moves, and इस mode में players beast style की तरह mid combat weapon attacks use कर सकते हैं. While being an extremely cool mechanic, extreme heat mode based combat के लिए more of a hindrance है than anything else. Because most of the hit actions extreme heat mode में logged हैं, and most players won't be able to use even half of them. Yakuza 6 also introduces a completely new and different upgrade system, जो 5 different experience points में divided हैं. Strength, Agility, Spirit, Technique, and Charm. Players need various combination of these experience points to upgrade stats and unlock new combat abilities. Similar to Yakuza 0's completion points, players can acquire these points by doing anything in the game, from combat, exploration, mini-games to side stories. Still, the main and most important source for experience points is food. Yakuza 6 एक hunger mechanic introduce करता है, in which players can get a substantial amount of experience points by just eating food. And since there is no hard cap on how much you can eat, players easily इस mechanic को abuse कर early game सारी abilities unlock कर सकते हैं. Which I suppose is completely fine since without them ये already shallow combat even more empty feel होता है. This is the overall combat of Yakuza 6. An empty and shallow system जिसमें कुछ cool but unfinished concepts हैं, making the combat experience much less enjoyable. Of course मैं previous games का more arcadey combat prefer करता हूँ, but I can see myself loving Dragon Engine combat as well. Because despite being less in-depth, I like the new feel of it. Dragon Engine का physics based combat each strike को काफ़ी heavy and powerful feel देता है, and with the combination of physics, it makes even this basic combat fun to play. It is a spectacle, but a really fun one, because throwing enemies around and seeing them ragdolling around will never not be funny, especially with all the props and objects flying around. I hope future Dragon Engine games or combat is heaviness and speed के बीच एक middle ground है, with even more fluid and in-depth combat with multiple fighting styles and less annoying stuff like block enemies and player character ragdoll. From what I've seen of Judgment and LikeaDragon Gaiden, it seems like that is exactly what they are doing, so I'm pretty excited to experience those combat systems. But for Yakuza 6 itself, it's a fine and fun combat system even if it's not as in-depth, and a first good attempt for Dragon Engine. Side content wise, Yakuza 6 काफ़ी bare bones है compared to something like Yakuza 0 and even Yakuza Kiwami. Game में total 51 side stories हैं जो Kamurocho and new region Onomichi में divided हैं. Onomichi real life Onomichi town पर based है, located in Hiroshima prefecture, जो अपने temples and slopes के लिए जाना जाता है since most of the attractions are located there. Onomichi is a far cry from any other region in the series. A small and quaint port town where time seems to have stopped progressing a long time ago, and where one alleyway leads to another. It's certainly a vibe, man. Onomichi and Yakuza 6 in general काफ़ी reminiscing है Yakuza 3 का. एक chill and laid back Kiryu in a new location जहाँ वो एक small Yakuza group से मिलता है and becomes friend with them. The game tries to invoke those feelings, and we even visit Morning Glory in the prologue. Onomichi is captivating and easily one of the best locations we have seen in the series regarding virtual tourism. Onomichi also has the most memorable side stories. Quests like The Fools Who Dream and The Girl Who Leapt Through Time will pull at your heartstrings, and the ones with Onomichi best experience first-handed. In Kamurocho, most of the side stories hostess related hai, but there are some good ones, like Haruka's biggest fan and especially the temptation of live chat, which made me laugh to high heavens. I can't die yet, still lots of boobs to see. I'm weird too. Beating really fast. There are total 51 side stories, but I haven't done a lot of them. जिसका reason side story presentation थी. Unlike previous games, Yakuza 6 is fully voiced, including side stories. And because of that, the dialogues in a lot of side stories drags for a while. And मुझे personally ये काफ़ी unnecessary लगा, and because of the lengthy cutscenes, I just didn't want to play a lot of these. And ये same problem game की main story में भी present है, but in a much more problematic way. So in chapter 5 of the main story, game एक new minigame introduce करता है, Clan Creator, which is a tower defense game, and because of this minigame, the main plot of the story takes a back seat for an entire hour, जिसमें Yakuza 6 इस minigame के plot, mechanics and characters को explain करता है. This segment is unskippable, which destroys the entire momentum of the main story. And I'm sure ये multiple playthroughs में even worse होने वाला है. Yakuza 5 and 0 did the same thing, but in those games, all the mini games main story का part है. And the introduction itself is much shorter. Something can't be said about this game. And the minigame itself, I don't give a shit. Other than clan creator, Yakuza 6 7 new minigames introduce करता है, which are baseball with team management, live chatting, reserve gym, troubler जिसमें किरयू कामरोचो के citizens की help करता है, similar to Tanimura's side content in Yakuza 4, Nyan Nyan Cat जो cat collecting minigame है, न्यू GAUDI जिसमें किरयू बार पेट्रन्स को अपना फ्रेंड बनाता है, providing multiple benefits, and spearfishing which is self-explanatory. Sega Arcade में 2 new games हैं, Pyo Pyo and the entirety of Virtual Fighter 5, which was pretty fun to play. Other than these, Batting Cages, Cabaret Club, Dart, Mojang and Karaoke are back with one of my all-time favorite songs. Surprisingly, some of the long-time series stays like pool, bowling and gambling minigames are missing, जिसका reason most likely game का rush development था. And now, let's talk about my least favorite part of this game. The plot. Set immediately after the events of Yakuza 5, Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department Yakuza 5 की स्टोरी में कुछ ना उखाड़ पाने की वजह से एक परपेटेटर ढूंढ रहे हैं, ताकि वो Yakuza 5 के इवेंट्स का पूरा ब्लेम किसी थर्ड पार्टी पर डाल आम जनता के सामने अपनी इमेज बरकरार रख सकें. बीइंग हॉटशॉट याकुजा, पुलिस डाइगो एंड माजिमा को ब्लेम नहीं कर सकते, एंड साइजिमा को तो ससुराल ही जेल है, सो ही इज़ आउट ऑफ द पिक्चर. बीइंग अ फॉर्मर याकुजा, किरयू वॉज द परफेक्ट टारगेट सिंस ही हैज़ नो पावर एंड कनेक्शंस. डैट इज जस्ट किरयू टू हायर अ गुड लॉयर ताकि वो इस केस को रफा दफा कर सके. बट उस दिन किरयू अपने सेल्फ पिटी मोड पर था, जहाँ वो अपनी याकुजा लाइफ का पश्चाताप करना चाहता है ताकि वो आम जनता के सामने सर उठा के जी सके, एंड कोई हारुका एंड ऑर्फनेज को एक क्रिमिनल से एसोसिएट ना करे. That day, logical and critical thinking were missing in Kiryu, so he spends the next 3 days in the joint while being someone's prison bitch. December 2016, Kiryu अपना prison sentence complete कर ओकिनावा आता है, where he finds out that due to an accident, Haruka is in a critical condition, and she had a child with her, presumably her own. Data tracks Haruka's last known location before she arrived in Kamurocho, Onomichi in Hiroshima Prefecture. किरयू विद हारुटो ओनिमिची जाता है ताकि वो हारुटो के फादर को ढूंढ सके, बट नथिंग इज सिंपल इन काजुमा किरयूज लाइफ, एंड ही फाइंड्स हिमसेल्फ इन अनदर कॉन्स्पिरेसी जहाँ किरयू ओकिनावा के सीक्रेट को अनकवर करने की कोशिश करता है while फाइंडिंग द फादर ऑफ हिज ग्रैंडसन. साउंड्स लाइक अ गुड प्लॉट, राइट? इट इज़, अगर हम किरयू की इनकन्सिस्टेंट कैरेक्टर राइटिंग एंड ओकिनावन सीक्रेट प्लॉट को इग्नोर कर सकें. याकुजा ऑलवेज हैड इनकन्सिस्टेंट राइटिंग. All the games have great stories, but there are a lot of moments जहाँ पर players को अपनी suspension of disbelief का use करना होता है to fully enjoy the batshit insane plot, which is fine. Yakuza fans don't mind that at all, because in the end, the stories are filled with amazing moments and characters. Yakuza 6 is same in that regard. The entire tone of the story is somber and melancholic, जहाँ players को many slow and laid back moments देखने को मिलते हैं. They are great, and it's nice to see a calm Kiryu spreading his wisdom any way he can. It's one of the reasons why I play these games. So story काफ़ी emotionally charged है with some of the best moments in the entire series, but it crumbles if we even try to dig just a little deeper. इसका best example Kiryu की character writing है. He's the chillest and calmest guy in most scenarios, but when it comes to his family and friends, Kiryu just doesn't give a shit about being polite, and in this game, we are talking about Haruka. One of the major plot points in Yakuza 6 is figuring out what happened to Haruka in Onomichi, and Kiryu एक Yakuza family से मिलता है जो Haruka के काफ़ी close थे. He figures out that they know what happened to her, but for some reason they don't want to tell Kiryu anything. So instead of just straight up asking them, Kiryu एक long game खेलता है जहाँ वो Yakuza family का friend बनता है ताकि वो उनसे Haruka के बारे में पूछ सके. And this was such a not Kiryu thing to do. We are talking about Haruka here. वो एक person जिसे Kiryu अपनी बेटी की तरह मानता है, and he saved her life multiple times even before knowing much about her. So if you're saying that Haruka is hospitalized and Kiryu can get back to her as soon as possible if he just beats the shit out of some people who are actively lying to him, he would do that in a heartbeat. I exactly know why the game tackled the situation the way it did, but no. This is just way too out of character for Kiryu, and Yakuza 6 is filled with such moments, especially the ending choice Kiryu makes in this game. That's just dumb writing, honestly. Other than the inconsistent writing, the second half of the plot, which is about Onomichi's secret, is just okay. It's very confusing and uninteresting compared to the Haruka plot, and मेरी opinion में the story could have been much better and focused if it wasn't part of this game. I love some story moments in Yakuza 6 and game में ऐसे कई segments हैं जो easily series highlights हैं. But overall, I think this might be my least favorite plot in the series so far. It tries to do a lot but just falls flat, and there are things that Yakuza 3 does better which Yakuza 6 is trying to be in a lot of ways. And अगर हम इसे Kazuma Kiryu का last game consider करें, then it's even more disappointing because it ignores so much that came after Yakuza 3. So I'm glad this was not the end of Kiryu's saga because he's one of those characters who genuinely deserves a better send-off than what Yakuza 6 was. And I honestly can't wait to play Infinite Wealth. And that was Yakuza 6. Another solid entry in the series जो many new things try करती है while also improving many aspects of previous games. It does a lot of things right, like almost everything related to Dragon Engine, but also makes some questionable choices. Still, even one of the weaker Yakuza games is still a good game in general. And that is exactly what Yakuza 6 is. Just another good installment in LikeaDragon franchise. Something I can say about Yakuza Kiwami 2. Released almost a year after Yakuza 6, on December 7th, 2017, Yakuza Kiwami 2 is the Dragon Engine remake of Yakuza 2, जो Yakuza 6 को as base use करता है similar to what the first Kiwami game did with Yakuza 0. This means combat, exploration, upgrade, and everything in between is straight up reused from Yakuza 6, while adding some new things like heavy attacks and Komaki moveset, and refining the overall combat from Yakuza 6. मैप वाइज Kiwami 2 कामुरोचो की कुछ सेक्शंस को reintroduce करता है which were missing in Yakuza 6 like Champion District, and brings the first rendition of Sotenbori in Dragon Engine, which looks gorgeous, especially compared to Kamurocho because for some reason they gave it a very aggressive green filter in this game. I don't know why. Game में एक missing location है that was in the original Yakuza 2 and never got reused in the series. Shinseicho, एक Osaka based district जो real life Shinsekai पर based था, known for its Suntekaku Tower. While I would have loved seeing this location in Dragon Engine, it's understandable why RGG cut it, since ये Yakuza 2 में काफ़ी small and time sensitive location थी, used only for a single chapter. So recreating it from the scratch would be a lot of work, but then again we can debate about how important such things were, and कैसे remakes can sometimes change and outright remove things that fanbase loved. Believe me, I have seen this discourse a lot with the Resident Evil remakes. Kiwami 2 original game में से another thing remove करता है, which is host mini game. जहाँ Kiryu Club Adam के लिए as a host work करता है, and that mini game had some of the most savage Kiryu lines in the entire series. But it's not all lost since Kiwami 2 replaces it with the Cabaret Club management mini game from Yakuza 0, जो nearly identical है in terms of gameplay. Other than Cabaret Club, Kiwami 2 Yakuza 6 के clan creator को भी reuse करता है with a new storyline that is related to Majima construction. Side story wise, it's mostly rehash of Yakuza 2 with some new ones. Game few new minigames भी introduce करता है like toilets, which is fun for the first few time but gets boring pretty fast. And bouncer missions, जो short beat 'em up levels है with multiple difficulty levels. The most substantial new thing that Kiwami 2 provides is Majima Saga, एक super short campaign जो Yakuza 2 की story का prequel है and ties heavily into Majima's plot from Yakuza 0. It's a short and sweet campaign जो Majima के character arc and Yakuza 0 के कुछ plot threads को close करता है in a bittersweet way. To be honest, I didn't really enjoy this game very much. मैंने both Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2 back to back complete किए थे because of how similar they are, and I'm glad I did that because this game is just not for me. It's another title in the series that will be much appreciated by people who haven't played the original games, and I'm glad I didn't waste that much time on it, because even compared to Kiwami 1, ये game काफ़ी boring feel होता है. Especially because of the much less in-depth and extremely easy combat, which puts Yakuza 5's difficulty to the shame. Oof, finally, this video is almost over. I think I've got my fill of Yakuza for a while. मैंने Yakuza 0, 6 and both Kiwami games almost back-to-back खेले थे in a very short time span, so I think I won't be playing another Yakuza game for a while. But then again, these games are vibes and maybe I'll just play one sooner than later. Until then, we can all enjoy something new and something different. For example, I might be playing a series that is related to cowboys and color red, and another series that is all about four horsemen. So yes, wink wink. Until then, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. Have an amazing day. Sayonara, and I'll meet you guys next time. Bye everyone.